Papua New Guinea adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development to achieve the country's Vision 2050. The Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the Global Goals, were adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity by 2030. Papua New Guinea is proud to announce that it is one of the few developing countries in the world that now has a climate response roadmap for Sustainable Development Goal 13 on climate action. The roadmap presents 30 major and important actions that the country will implement from now to 2030 in responding to climate change.
The level of climate threats that our unique and fragile ecosystems are facing is a concern to us. It is for this reason that we work tirelessly to ensure that we can have sustainable development while maintaining and preserving our strategic natural assets. In 2015, Papua New Guinea adopted the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development to help achieve the country's Vision 2050. Under this agenda, Sustainable Development Goals serve to guide our economic growth, improve our well-being, and strengthen our resolve to improve access to basic services for all our people. The SDGs are incorporated into Papua New Guinea's Medium-Term Development Plan 2018 to 2022. Progress on the SDGs has been both good and challenging for the thematic areas of some key sectors. Today, we launched the roadmap to successful delivery of Sustainable Development Goals 13, which focuses on the urgent action needed to combat climate change and its impacts. The SDG 1330 by 30 roadmap gives us a common purpose and clarifies the most urgent priorities for action. If we follow this map together, by 2030, we should be able to say PNG has addressed the risks posed by climate change to its people, its ecosystems, and its development without a substantial increase in greenhouse gas emissions. The SDG 13 roadmap is designed within our existing national policy settings. It does, however, highlight emerging areas of social and economic or environmental significance. As Managing Director of the Climate Change Development Authority, it has been my pleasure to lead the development of this climate roadmap. It has also been a privilege to work closely with the Department of National Planning and Monitoring and all our good stakeholders from the government agencies, civil society, and private sector in its development. I would like to extend my deep gratitude to the United Nations Development Programme for the support in the preparation of this 30 by 30 roadmap by the Climate Change and Development Authority. UNDP has been a trusted ally for us and the United Nations community. Other non-governmental organizations and our bilateral partners have played an important role in our successful climate change action to date. I'm urging all UN agencies, partners, and accredited entities in countries to support our climate change country program and provide the much needed financial and technical assistance to our national stakeholders. Action is urgent. We have the map and we know where we are going. I ask you to join us on the journey. Thank you.
It is truly a pleasure to be part of this launch. I would like to start by congratulating the Climate Change and Development Authority and the government on the launch of the Climate Change Roadmap. It is a culmination of months of work, a thorough consultative inclusive process, and it sets a benchmark. There are many countries in the world that have undertaken similar initiatives. Many countries are planning for and are implementing climate action. Few have, however, sought to capture a commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals in this way. The United Nations Development Programme has been a proud and long-standing partner to Papua New Guinea, and the joint work on the SDG 13 roadmap is an expression of our commitment to supporting government in its fight against climate change. For many around the world, climate change raises fundamental questions of human security and survival. Those hardest hit today are among the world's most vulnerable, many of whom live in developing countries, many of whom are women. Papua New Guinea is no exception to this. I would hazard to say that for Papua New Guinea, there is no greater question of national interest than how to address climate change and to build a sustainable and inclusive future for all. There is little that conveys the growing disruption presented by climate change more than the lived experience of so many. Whether you are a farmer in the highlands or a fisherman in the atolls, I can guarantee that you are experiencing profound changes in the environment around you. Unfortunately, conveying this reality is often lost in global discussions on economic development, especially now during this COVID-19 pandemic and ensuing socio-economic crisis. A false dichotomy between sustainable livelihoods and economic development is often created. The impacts of the current crisis, however, will be dwarfed by the socio-economic impacts unchecked climate change presents. The COVID-19 pandemic itself is a direct result of increased encroachment, environmental degradation, and destruction of natural habitats, bringing us too close to zoonotic diseases, such as this virus. There are many reasons why Papua New Guinea has and needs to pursue development, but the type of development we want is a defining question. Climate change does, however, bring into sharp focus the need for change, to orient growth towards greener economic models that are low carbon, resource efficient, and socially inclusive. It brings into sharp focus the urgency of applying sustainable development as a first principle to achieving growth, as unsustainable development erodes the very basis on which all our wealth is built, natural resources. This is the challenge that Papua New Guinea now faces. But with every challenge comes opportunity. The Sustainable Development Goals are a blueprint for achieving a better and more sustainable future for all. They address the global challenges everyone faces. The United Nations Development Programme has proudly supported the government of Papua New Guinea in the preparation of its climate change roadmap. The roadmap highlights the importance of all partners, government, communities, civil society, development partners, and the private sector in coming together to drive climate action. It recognizes that partnerships foster innovation. The importance of tackling the impacts of climate change cannot be understated. Papua New Guinea has been vocal on this for many years. It has often led global initiatives. Papua New Guinea was a founding member of the RED initiative that recognizes the importance of forests as a major asset to mitigate global greenhouse gas emissions. Papua New Guinea was the world's first country to submit its nationally determined contributions under the 2015 Paris Agreement. The roadmap will serve the government's efforts to better define its so-called nationally determined contribution, and its current efforts to revise them is another initiative that UNDP is proudly supporting as a major partner. Such efforts represent an ongoing commitment, not only to international agreements, but measuring efforts on climate action. Looking forward to 2030, I take this opportunity to reiterate UNDP's commitment to support Papua New Guinea in this endeavor. Thank you very much.
Good evening, viewers. I'd like to especially mention and thank the Honorable Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, Honorable James Marape, for accepting our invitation to be part of the virtual launching of this milestone event this evening. Viewers, we must recognize that the environment and the economy go hand in hand, and that ambitious climate actions will protect the environment. Papua New Guinea is recognized as being particularly vulnerable to climate change. This high level of vulnerability results from a combination of potentially significant levels of climate change impacts and low levels of adaptive capacity. The Asian Development Bank's report, titled Economics of Climate Change in the Pacific, states that economic impacts of climate change will likely be more severe in Papua New Guinea than in any other Pacific nation. Impacts will occur across sectors, primarily agriculture, infrastructure, mining, and health. Viewers, most Papua New Guineans rely on subsistence agriculture. More than 80% of the population lives in rural areas as subsistence agricultural farmers. Whilst the effects of climate change won't be the same across all of Papua New Guinea, each region will face significant impacts on their infrastructure, health, food supply, and industries. Papua New Guinea must take urgent action to prepare for the impending impacts of climate change. Viewers, the Climate Change Response Roadmap was developed by the government in partnership with the United Nations Development Program Country Office with the goal of coordinating across sectoral, efficient and responsible development that is measurable and practically achievable. The roadmap is for all citizens of Papua New Guinea, addressing women, children from different settings in the remote and urban communities, and stakeholders across sectors from agriculture to mineral resources, policymakers, and the private sector. This roadmap will be used to guide actions for real and practical interventions that are needed to increase resilience to climate change and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Such progress, however, will not be possible without strong partnerships and investment. And I call upon my good stakeholder agencies, international partners, and private sector bodies to work with us in this endeavor. The Climate Change and Development Authority is currently working in collaboration with our partners and cross-sectoral agencies. I therefore truly believe that the 30 by 30 actions of the climate roadmap will help to achieve our national development goals in line with climate actions and contribute to the green growth of our beautiful country. Thank you all for watching, and God bless you all.
Good evening, viewers watching this program all over Papua New Guinea. It is with great pleasure to be here to officiate the launch of Papua New Guinea's Sustainable Goal 13 Roadmap, an empowering response to challenges and opportunities posed by the climate change. Before I proceed, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Honorable Minister Wera Mori, Minister for Environment and Climate Change, and the Climate Change Development Authority, who have worked tirelessly to push climate adaptation and mitigation efforts across Papua New Guinea and internationally. Papua New Guinea recognizes the enormous challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. That 2030 is approaching fast, and Papua New Guinea, as the biggest economy in the Pacific, must lead by example. Papua New Guinea's environmental and climate change legislative framework is quite innovative and dynamic. It guides our domestic action to promote a climate resilient agenda as we move forward towards achieving economy-wide reductions. At present, I note that the Climate Change Management Act 2015 is undergoing review to align with the Paris Agreement and the revisions of Papua New Guinea's national determined contributions, I beg your pardon. Building on the progress in the country's commitment by taking action on climate change, Papua New Guinea had taken steps by translating the ambitions articulated in the 2030 agenda into tangible outcomes for our people by integrating the SDGs into our national visions and policies. Last month, I did presented the voluntary national review of the independent state of Papua New Guinea on the implementation of the 2030 development agenda and the sustainable development goals. That was the country's first national review process, which involved all sectors and the general public. Today, I stand here to present the Sustainable Development Goal number 13 roadmap, which I spoke of under SDG 13 progress. The roadmap presents the 30 major actions that the country will take by 2030 to respond to climate change. Using the Sustainable Development Goal as a framework, the roadmap aims to achieve the objectives set out in the country's medium-term development plan number 3. Viewers, this roadmap focuses on climate governance, energy, forestry, agriculture, infrastructure, fisheries, tourism, biodiversity, conservation, and health. Without this roadmap, there will be no immediate and tangible action to achieve the objectives and targets set out in the medium-term development plans. The cost incurred in this country by climate change is enormous, and the available resource that we have in the country to address climate change is very minimal. The emphasis on having the United Nations SDG 1330 by 30 roadmap is that all responsible sectors of government will have to take ownership to drive those actions. I acknowledge the efforts made by the Honourable Minister and his agency, Climate Change and Development Authority, in making tremendous effort in identifying new domestic levies and fees to be charged on some of our emission sources. This new funding source will support the government and sector agencies to drive implementation of the Sustainable Development Goal number 13 roadmap. Although the government of PNG may take the lead on many of those actions, we will also need the resources, energy, commitment of our people, subnational governments, the private sector, our development partners, international funding mechanisms such as the Green Climate Change and civil society, amongst others, to ensure successful implementation. I shall reiterate the statement I made at New Zealand Institute of International Affairs. You need oxygen as much as I need oxygen out there in the world. Our biodiversity in PNG is second to none. 6% or 7% of the world's biodiversity is found in Papua New Guinea. The Pacific Blue Oceans must be kept in a healthy state. We must be pollution-free. And this can only happen when PNG, as the leading nation in the South Pacific, take an active way forward. And Papua New Guinea has taken that way forward by outlining actions to protect the 6 to 7% of the world's biodiversity and the third largest tropical rainforest that we have in this country, which I call as the lungs of Earth. I am pleased to see that the SDG 13 roadmap complements the National Oceans Policy, where we can work with different stakeholders to implement specific key actions areas on how to use, protect, and sustainably manage different aspects of the ocean. Viewers, with that being said, I, as Prime Minister of this beautiful country, now officially launch Papua New Guinea Sustainable Development Goal number 13 roadmap, an empowering response to challenges and opportunities posed by climate change. Thank you for watching, and God bless Papua New Guinea. God bless each and every one of you. And I'm extremely honored as Prime Minister to serve under this time to see the launch of this one, and I congratulate the Minister and the team at the Climate Change Office as well as UNDP for assisting us getting to this one. Congratulations everyone for this effort. I officially launched this. Okay, very good. PNG Sustainable. It's called 30 Actions by 2030, Papua New Guinea Sustainable Development Goal number 13 Roadmap. Congratulations.
This virtual launching is a milestone event for Climate Change and Development Authority with the support of United Nations Development Programme, Papua New Guinea Country Office.